The message came late in the afternoon, just as I was packing up my desk and telling myself I'd survive another week without disappointing anyone. Anniversary dinner tonight. Don't be late. No, please. No, we'd love to see you. Just expectation, wrapped in obligation. Still, my chest warmed at the word anniversary. My parents rarely invited me to anything anymore. Somewhere deep inside me, a small hopeful voice whispered that maybe this time was different. Maybe they wanted me there. Maybe I mattered enough to be included, not as an afterthought, not as help, but as family. I left work early, ignoring my supervisor's raised eyebrow. I drove across town with my stomach empty and my mind full, replaying memories I didn't want to touch. Birthdays spent washing dishes while my sister opened gifts. Holidays where my opinions were called overreactions. Love, always measured by how useful I could be. The restaurant glowed with soft golden light, elegant but not too expensive, the kind of place chosen carefully by people who planned not to pay themselves. I smoothed my wrinkled dress, took a breath, and walked in. They were already done. Plates pushed aside. Wine glasses empty. My mother leaned back in her chair, satisfied, laughing at something my sister said. My father checked his phone, relaxed, unhurried. I stood there, invisible for a moment too long. Mom noticed me first. Her smile was bright, automatic. "Oh, you're late," she said. "Cover the bill, will you?" The words landed gently, like a joke, but the weight behind them crushed my chest. My sister laughed. Sharp. Familiar. Still as clueless as ever. I smiled back because that's what I had always done. Because not smiling meant being dramatic. Because reacting meant being ungrateful. But something inside me shifted. I looked at the table more carefully. The empty plates. The folded napkins. The finished celebration. I wasn't late. I had been invited exactly when they were done. The realization slid into place with terrifying clarity. This wasn't carelessness. It was planning. They had calculated the timing, the traffic, my guilt. They had known I would rush, apologize, and pay without question. Just like always. I pulled out my chair and sat down, even though no one had saved me a plate. My stomach growled, loud enough that my sister smirked. "Didn't eat?" she asked sweetly. "No," I said quietly. Mom waved her hand. "You can grab something on the way home." On the way home. That phrase echoed in my head, carrying years of dismissal with it. On the way home. After everyone else was full. After everyone else was satisfied. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window beside the table. I looked tired. Older than I felt. A young woman who had spent her life trying to earn affection that was never meant to be given freely. For the first time, I didn't feel embarrassed. I felt awake. And somewhere beneath the hurt, beneath the betrayal, a question rose, soft, but unignorable. What if I didn't pay this time? That was the moment everything began to change. The question stayed with me as I sat there. What if I didn't pay this time? It felt dangerous. Almost forbidden. Like stepping outside an invisible line I had been trained not to cross. My mother reached for her purse, then stopped. She glanced at me, expectant. My sister scrolled on her phone, unconcerned. They were so comfortable in their assumption that I would handle it. I always did. I fixed problems before they became inconvenient. I absorbed tension so others could stay relaxed. The server appeared with the leather-bound bill folder and placed it neatly in the center of the table. It sat there like a test. "Well," my sister said, not even looking up. I watched my hands rest calmly in my lap. They didn't move. Minutes passed. The silence grew awkward, thick, unfamiliar. My father cleared his throat, shifting in his chair. "Aren't you going to take that?" he asked. Something cracked open inside me then. Not loudly. Not violently. It was the sound of a lifetime of swallowed words finally losing their grip. I realized how small I had made myself to keep the peace, how often I had mistaken compliance for love. "I need to speak to the manager," I said. My voice surprised me. It was steady. Almost gentle. My mother's smile faltered. "Why would you do that?" I stood before anyone could stop me. My legs felt light, like they belonged to someone braver. Each step away from the table felt like stepping out of a role I had been forced to play since childhood. At the host stand, I waited, heart pounding, not from fear, but from adrenaline. When the manager arrived, I explained quietly. No accusations. No tears. Just the truth. "I was invited after the meal ended," I said. "I wasn't told I was expected to pay. I won't be covering this bill." The words felt unreal. Like they belonged to another woman, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. Behind me, I could hear whispers. My mother's voice dropped into a sharp hiss. My sister's chair scraped against the floor. The manager nodded, professional but alert. "Thank you for letting me know," he said. We walked back together. Their faces changed the moment they saw him. Color drained from my mother's cheeks. My sister's confident expression cracked, replaced by disbelief. "What is this about?" my father asked. The manager addressed them politely. "Your daughter has informed me she will not be paying for this meal. I'll need to settle the bill now." My sister laughed, but it was brittle. "She's joking." I didn't speak. I didn't need to. For the first time, they were being seen, not as charming, not as deserving, but as customers who had made an assumption. An assumption that no longer held power. "This is ridiculous," my mother snapped, reaching for her purse with trembling hands. I watched her struggle with the zipper, watched frustration replace entitlement. I felt no joy in it. No satisfaction. Just clarity. I had been useful to them. Convenient. Predictable. And now, I wasn't. As they argued quietly with the manager, I picked up my coat. My sister stared at me like I had committed some unforgivable crime. "You're embarrassing us," she said. I met her eyes. "No," I replied softly. "I'm just not saving you anymore." I walked toward the door without waiting for permission, my heart pounding in my ears. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside, and I inhaled deeply, like someone who had been underwater far too long. Inside that restaurant, something had shattered. But out here, for the first time in my life, I felt whole. I didn't look back when I left the restaurant. I expected my legs to shake, my chest to cave in under the weight of what I had done. Instead, I walked steadily, my heels clicking against the pavement like punctuation at the end of a sentence that had waited years to be finished. My phone buzzed before I even reached my car. "What the hell was that?" "You've always paid. Don't be dramatic." The messages came in fast, overlapping, frantic. I slid into the driver's seat and turned the phone face down. For once, I didn't rush to explain myself. I didn't defend my intentions or soften my words. I simply sat there, hands on the steering wheel, breathing. I wasn't angry. That realization startled me. I was sad, but it was a clean sadness, the kind that comes when truth finally replaces denial. I saw my life with sudden clarity, how often I had been invited only when something was needed, how my presence had been measured by usefulness rather than love. When I got home, the apartment felt unusually quiet. No one asking favors. No one criticizing my tone. Just space. I poured a glass of water and sat on the couch, letting memories surface uninvited. My first paycheck, mostly gone to help out. The time my parents forgot my birthday but remembered to ask for rent money. The countless apologies I had offered for feelings I was allowed to have. That night, I didn't cry for them. I cried for the girl who had believed she had to earn affection. The call started the next morning. My mother left a voicemail thick with disappointment, not concern. My father texted about respect. My sister sent a message that cut deepest, "You think you're better than us now?" I didn't reply. That was the revenge they never expected, the silence. Days passed. Then weeks. Without constant demands, my life softened. I slept better. Ate when I was hungry. Laughed without checking if it was too loud. I noticed how much energy I had spent bracing myself for them, preparing for disappointment before it arrived. I began setting boundaries in other places too. Saying no to extra work. Canceling plans when I was exhausted. Choosing myself in small, unremarkable ways that felt revolutionary. And slowly, the guilt loosened its grip. One afternoon, I ran into my parents at the grocery store. They looked older. Smaller. My mother's smile was tight, cautious. "We should talk," she said. I nodded. "Maybe someday." I didn't offer more. Walking away, I realized something powerful: I no longer needed them to understand. Their confusion was no longer my responsibility. The truth was simple and unchangeable. I had stopped playing my role. That was the real consequence. People who benefit from your silence will always call your voice betrayal. But I wasn't betraying anyone. I was finally being loyal to myself. The revenge wasn't embarrassment at a restaurant or unpaid bills. The revenge was freedom. Freedom to see myself clearly. Freedom to stop shrinking. Freedom to become someone they could no longer control. And in that quiet awakening, I found something sweeter than revenge. I found peace. Healing didn't arrive all at once. It came in fragments: slow mornings without dread, evenings where my thoughts were my own, moments when I realized I hadn't checked my phone in hours, not waiting for anyone's approval. I used to believe love was loud. Demanding. Conditional. Something you proved by sacrifice. Walking away from my family forced me to relearn everything I thought I knew about connection and worth. I started therapy. Not because I was broken, but because I was tired of carrying stories that were never mine to hold. With every session, I learned to name things I had been taught to excuse: neglect disguised as independence, manipulation masked as humor, control labeled as care. I stopped explaining myself. That change alone reshaped my world. When my mother eventually reached out again, her message was carefully neutral. "We miss you." No apology. No acknowledgement. Just an open door back into the same patterns. I didn't walk through it. Instead, I replied with honesty. "I'm taking space. Please respect that." My hand shook as I sent it, but afterward, something settled inside me. Strength, I realized, wasn't the absence of fear. It was choosing myself anyway. My sister never apologized. She didn't have to. Her silence said enough. Some people can only love you when you're smaller than them. I refused to shrink again. In the absence of family noise, I built something new. Friendships rooted in kindness, not convenience. Celebrations where I was waited for. Meals where someone asked, "Are you hungry?" and meant it. On my birthday, I cooked for myself. I lit candles. I bought a cake with my name written carefully across the top. I sang softly, alone but not lonely. I realized then how far I had come. I no longer confused endurance with strength or suffering with loyalty. I understood that being the good daughter had nearly cost me my sense of self. Months later, I passed the same restaurant where everything had changed. The windows glowed just as warmly, but I didn't feel the old ache. I smiled, not because it hurt less, but because it had taught me something priceless. I had learned how to leave a table where I wasn't being fed. The woman I had become was unrecognizable to the version of me who once rushed across town to earn scraps of affection. She stood taller. She spoke slower. She trusted her instincts. And she knew this truth in her bones. Love does not humiliate you. Family does not use you. And you are never too much for asking to be treated with care. My parents and sister still tell their version of the story. I no longer correct it. Peace doesn't require being understood. It requires being free. And I am. Not because I won. Not because they lost. But because I finally chose myself, and never looked back.